Hi, my name is Sarah Kenny. I am presenting my midterm for PNH220, Organizing to Make a Difference. So the first topic that I chose was on community organizing. What is community organizing? Catherine Foster and Justin Louie are philanthropic leaders who evaluated Grassroots. And in their journal, they speak about community organizing as a democratically governed, values-driven process that catalyzes the power of individuals to work collectively to make the changes they want to see in their communities. Community organizers honor and develop the leadership potential in everyday people by helping them identify problems and solutions, and then by supporting them as they take action to make these solutions a reality. In so doing, organizing challenges the existing power structure. After doing some further research into some of the authors that we've read about this semester, Saul Alinsky was considered the founder of community organizing. It's also called neighborhood organizing. Alinsky's method of organizing focused on developing local leaders to confront local decision makers, such as politicians, and public bureaucracies. He believed that a practical approach and emphasis on self-interest would empower and unify communities. At its core, building relationships is central to Alinsky's model of organizing to build enough power to effect change. And then he believed community members were change makers. So Arlene Stein, she spoke about this in her article, and then mobilization of restless middle and lower class Americans into strong neighborhood organizations. Alinsky believed would provide a challenge to corrupt elected officials unaccountable public bureaucracies and corporations, thus restoring power to the people. Alinsky's model of organizing in a step-by-step process. One begins with one-on-one encounters initiated by organizers to build relationships. Two, issue research and community listening sessions. Three, research sessions between elected officials and key stakeholders within the community. And then four would be taking action, building power among community leaders, presenting solutions, and building community commitment to the cause. How does community organizing differ from other advocacy efforts? So community organizing utilizes a bottom-up approach, whereas most advocacy efforts use a top-down approach. Advocates speak up for others, while community organizers inspire community members to become leaders and speak for themselves. And then the role of grassroots in community organizing, and then just a quick definition of grassroots. So grassroots is a type of movement or campaign that attempts to mobilize individuals to take some action to influence an outcome, often of a political nature. And then going further into this top-down and bottom-up approach. So in a top-down approach, it's primarily used by larger national and international NGOs. Community change originates with experts, community leaders, and others with power. It also emphasizes lobbying, bargaining with decision-making authorities in different platforms, obtains support from government, and also actively engages in advocacy activities and campaigns. The bottom-up approach is primarily utilized by Grassroots and smaller national NGOs that provides a platform to introduce key issues and widens the scope of participants and practitioners discuss issues with open mind. It emphasizes community participation, grassroots movements, and local decision-making. Some examples of a bottom-up approach could be self-help groups, community garden initiatives, things like that. And then a bottom-up approach, the advantages and disadvantages. Advantages is that this approach places power in the hands of local residents and people who have been personally impacted by oppression. Grassroots movements don't rely on professionals or politicians to lead their movements, rather they have a decentralized leadership, focusing more on collective action. It's often more adaptable to change than a top-down approach. And then it also values diverse perspectives and innovative ideas to come up with new solutions. Disadvantages could be limited funding sources, the need to heavily rely on small donations and volunteer support. There could be fragmentation due to the decentralized leadership, could lead to a lack of coordination, and it may be difficult to align everyone's efforts towards a specific objective. And then moving on to intersectionality. So the history of intersectionality, the term intersectionality was first coined by Kimberly Crenshaw in her article at the University of Chicago Legal Forum titled Demarginalizing Intersection of Race and Sex, a Black Feminist Critique of Anti-Discrimination Doctrine, Feminist Theory, and Anti-Racist Politics. In an interview with Columbia Law School, Crenshaw shares that the concept of intersectionality is a lens through which you can see where power comes and collides, where it interlocks and intersects. It's not simply that there's a race problem here, a gender problem here, and a class or LGBTQ problem there. Many times that framework erases what happens to people who are subject to all of these things. And then African-American sociologist Patricia Hill Collins developed intersectionality further as a critical social theory, and she applied intersectionality as an analytical lens to examine complex social institutions and systems of oppression in 2000. She proposed the matrix of domination to show how oppressive systems intersect to marginalize people in different ways. She also focused on the experience of Black women, and that intersectionality applies to other forms of oppression and intersections, including in relation to class, sexual orientation, gender identity, immigration status, and other dimensions of identity. So Fernando Aponte describes intersectionality as the idea that disadvantage is conditioned by multiple interacting systems of oppression. The goals of intersectionality, described by UN Women Australia, is that the goal of an intersectional approach is to achieve substantive equality that leaves no one behind, more inclusive and responsive policymaking and service delivery, and better use of resources. Strategies under intersectionality can be acknowledging multiple intersecting identities, understanding and analyzing power dynamics and system of oppression, respect individual dignity, autonomy, and identity, creating safe and inclusive environments, and then promoting a more just and equitable society. Addressing multiple forms of oppression, organizers use an intersectional approach to organizing to address multiple forms of oppression. For example, an organizer who uses an intersectional approach to combat the school-to-prison pipeline won't focus only on the impact that this has on boys, but would also address the discipline that girls of color and gender and non-conforming students experience in relation to the school-to-prison pipeline. This is also a intersectionality wheel created by UN Women Australia, published in 2024. I thought it was a great visualization of what the intersectional approach encompasses in all of its interconnections. And then finally, I chose Three Strands Global Foundation as an example for intersectionality, as they focus on prevention and protection of human trafficking, and they provide workshops on intersectional approaches in the intersectionality of domestic violence and human trafficking. They were founded in response to an event that shook a small, tight-knit California community. A young girl was trafficked for 8 days before she was recovered by law enforcement. This will later spark the creation of prevention education, which has gone on to educate hundreds of thousands of students on how to stay safe from human trafficking. They recognize that there needed to be more resources available for survivors as well, and those who face barriers to sustainable economic opportunities. And so they also help support and economically empower hundreds of individuals. I thought that they were a great organization to understand more about that intersectionality between human trafficking and domestic violence. And then here is my references, and thank you for watching.